We are plunging headlong into the second half of 2024, which is a little bit sad to think about. We're leaving summer behind. My kids go back to school tomorrow. But that does mean that we are approaching the second half of the year for specific releases in the whiskey community. One of those things that we have to look forward to is the 2024 release of Angel's Envy Cask Strength Rye. So, in anticipation, we are going to be covering last year's release, which I think was like 7 months ago is when it came out. This was sent in by Delicious Dairy. Beautiful color on it, but it's such an interesting whiskey in terms of what they did with it. So I want to dive into their process with this one so that you know if you should keep your eyes peeled for the 2024 release when it drops. And as she's stewing a bit in the glass, let me talk a bit about this particular rye whiskey and what makes it interesting. So let's start with the whiskey itself, the juice itself. You're looking at 95.5, so 95% rye, 5% malted barley. There is 0 corn in the mash bill. Basically, all the sweetness we're going to get out of this is going to be from the maturation of the rye during the aging process, but mostly is going to be imparted by the secondary barreling, because obviously that's Angel's Envy's whole thing. It's a lot of wine cask finished stuff. The proof on this is 114.4, and the MSRP is going to come in around $240 is what you're going to pay for this bottle. So what they do is they're taking 95.5 rye that has been aging for anywhere between 5 and 7 years. And then they're taking that juice and they're splitting it up 3 ways. Some of that is going to go into Sauterne casks. So if you're not familiar with Sauterre, right? I'm not French, but I can try to sound French, I suppose. But if you're not familiar with Sauterne, it's a kind of wine that's made from grapes that have been affected by a certain fungus in the Bordeaux region of France. So they're gonna spend 3 years in ex-Sauterne casks, which is a long time to be finishing. You know, normally you think of a finish as like most places do it like 4 to 6 months, you know what I mean? But 3 years is a long time to be finishing in these casks. And then some of it is also going to go into French oak barrels. Some of it is going to go into American oak barrels. And then they're blending these all back together at cask strength. And that is going to give us what we have right here today. First thing I'm noticing, what a beautiful color. It does have this sort of just a tinge of red in here. Just this little bit of a maroon sort of a note in here. With there being 0 corn in here, it's not highly viscous, but it is leaving a nice coating on the glass. And you guys know I'm a big sucker for ryes. And we were actually having this discussion in our Discord, which if you're not in our Discord, why the heck not? We literally just raffled off a 32-year-old whiskey today. So that's the kind of stuff we do in our Discord. We have events, we get together sometimes, we have bottle shares, we even have a virtual tasting coming up with a distributor rep with lots of different distilleries being represented there. You're just going to get a ton of free whiskey. We're all just going to sit down together and drink it and have somebody who knows about it talk about it. It's going to be great. So get in there. But we were just having this discussion in our Discord about what's better, finished ryes or finished bourbons. Some people said, oh, I love the finished ryes because they don't start out super sweet like a bourbon would, and then you can do more, a lot of sweet finishes come through very well. It sort of adopts those sweet qualities very well. And then you had other people who were like, heck no, man. Rye tends to override the finish. I prefer a bourbon that's just light and delicate and sweet, and then has these other notes that it absorbs more, more favorably. Interesting chat. And then there were still other people who were like, you're all crazy. If it's not Scotch, I don't want it. So anyways, holy cow. I get hit right off the bat on the nose with this. Like an intermingling of 2 notes that I love. The first is that mature rye note. And this is only 5 to 7 year old rye whiskey. Well, initially, some of it does have an extra 3 years of aging in a secondary barrel. But I'm getting a lot of those mature rye notes, sort of these yellow fruits, even maybe like a nice pear note. But it's intermingling with this dusty grape. It's almost like a bottle out of a wine cellar that's been sitting in its nook for many years. It even has some cobwebs and dust on it. And then the person pulls it out and they kind of brush it off like this and like, oh, this is a good year. That's this on the nose. This is you smell it and you're like, this is a good year. Dusty grape, you know what I mean? And underneath these fruity notes, the dusty grape and the sweet pear, there's also a sort of like a dark chocolate or even a coffee grounds note underneath all that too. A certain richness to it. What a beautiful nose. Let's get in on it. Cheers. Holy cow. It is just a mountain of flavor. Something's coming subtle. This does not. This kicks the door down. Cask strength rye is the first thing I get. I get hit with this wave of spice and oak, and on the back side of that wave is where those coffee notes come in, like coffee grounds and bitter chocolates. And then a second wave comes along after that, and this one is all that stemmy grape. I think of a wine cellar. You think dust in the air. Grape is heavy and thick in the air. And the finish is really peculiar. Because you know what the finish makes me think of? Just exhaling a bit through my nose as there's nothing in my mouth anymore, sort of just circulating in here. I think of vermouth, like a sweet red vermouth. It goes down almost like a Manhattan. Yeah, this is a case where the finish does not change fundamentally what this is. It is a cask strength rye whiskey, 95% rye in the mash. It is big and bold with those rye notes, but they are mature rye notes. They're not the young, bitey rye notes. It has a little bit of attitude left on it, but it has grown up a little bit. But the Sauterne grapey notes are there to help alleviate a little bit of that big, bold brashness of the rye. It's like it punches you in the face and then it apologizes and gives you a nice warm hug. That's what this is like. And I like that the Sauterne finish there is not overshadowing anything, but rather it's working harmoniously with the rye to create something that has two nice sides to it. Sometimes when you do a finish that doesn't work well, that isn't executed well, you end up just sort of muting the two things and blending them into one lesser thing, sort of like mushing them together. It's like when you have a beautiful green and a vibrant red and you think, let's mix them together, and you end up with poopy brown. That's not what you want with a finish. You want to mix two things together that are going to work harmoniously to elevate it into something new and something better. And this is that. And I'm a sucker for a good Manhattan, so the finish on this is just fantastic to me. If I can nitpick anything at all, it would be that I get some of that peppercorn on the finish and it sort of outlasts the vermouthy notes. And I wish it was the other way around. I wish the last thing on that finish before it waved goodbye was that vermouth, that sweet fortified wine note that I'm getting on this. I love that it's there in the finish, but I want it to be the last thing. That's, again, being very nitpicky, though. All in all, if you're starting to think about what's my splurge bottle in the fall gonna be, you might consider setting aside some cash to think about investing it in this bottle in 2024, the Cask Strength Rye from Angel's Envy. If I'm going to give it a score per my scale, I think where I would land today would be an 8.1, right? Fantastic whiskey. If you can find it at MSRP, I think you would be crazy not to pick it up if you had the funds set aside for a splurge bottle and this one came along. You know, a bird in the hand beats two in the bush. I say take the one you got. And then at that point, one of the things you can always do when you get your hands on a bottle like this is you can always go ahead and do bottle swaps with people, or swap samples with people where you say, hey, I got a splurge bottle. You got another one I wanted to get. We can swap samples. I'll give you an ounce or two out of my bottle. You give me an ounce or two out of yours. And then you get to sort of wheel and deal a little bit and try a plethora of different things that you might have missed out on. And that is what's wonderful about being a member of a whiskey community. I'm involved in a couple. We've got our local Grand Rapids, Michigan one that I'm in. We've got obviously the one that is connected to our Discord here at Dramguard, which you would be more than welcome to introduce yourself. Link to that is in the description below. Totally free to join. On that note, I would say thank you so much for tuning in and watching the video today. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters as you guys fund the bottles that we get to pick up and review here on the channel. And a shout out to those of you in our whiskey community who share with me your shelves so that I can try stuff like this. Cheers, my friends. May you live richly and get better with age. And I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.